Hi, I'm Sheila McManus. I'm one of the board chairs at the Teaching Centre at the University of Lethbridge. Welcome to another Ed Talk. And today I'm talking to Dr. Robin Bright, who is one of the former board chairs, 2010 to 2012.
That's right.
I think was your term. So why did you become a board chair?
Well, I mean, basically, I love teaching. And, you're always trying to improve your practice and look for different ways to do that, right? So I feel like I'd worked in my own faculty and continue to work as much as I could. And I was really looking for a new challenge, something that would be exciting, something that would get me out of the way I think about teaching. And so the idea of working with new people from all across campus really appealed to me. And I was really interested in working with people on something that might be a campus-wide initiative, right, to improve teaching. So I don't know if you were here, but in the 1990s, we had a group called the Teaching in Focus group. And David Townsend headed that up, and he just put an invitation out to people. Anybody who wants to meet on Friday afternoons, we'll get together and talk about teaching.
Great.
Right. So that was my first sort of foray into working with other people on teaching. And I mean, it was really fun. I remember that, he challenged us to bring videotapes of our teaching. Okay. And we'd share them with the group, and then we'd talk a little bit about what our goals were. And while it sounds scary, it really wasn't, because everybody was so supportive. And, you didn't feel bad. I mean, if you're not the only one putting a videotape up there, right? Yeah. So everybody risked the same. And I think that group probably lasted, I want to say 2 or 3 years. So, and I thought that was a pretty nice way to work. Yeah. But when it dissolved, there was really nothing that sort of, took its place in terms of being campus-wide. So, you go back, right? You work in your own classroom, you work with some of your colleagues that are close, but you're missing something, or at least I thought I was. And so when the board chair position was announced, I remember talking to Shelley Wismath about it in the early years, and just over lunch, and asking her about it. So I was interested in it, prior to actually putting in an application, being nominated.
Yeah, because Shelley was the first, and you were the third?
I want to say third.
Third or fourth?
I think
so
because
one of the early ones.
and I talked to Rick Mrazek at the time, and he was enormously encouraging and supportive, and did, I think, take the lead in nominating me. So I'm just so grateful to him for taking the time to kind of mentor me a little bit towards that role. Yeah. And
I don't think I mentioned before, so your background actually is in education. So for you, it was also an interesting step to come into, I think, this kind of multidisciplinary group of faculty. I think the Teaching in Focus was a neat precursor for that. But coming into a group of people who don't have your existing background in education, but still had a lot to offer each other.
That's right. Absolutely. Every instructor, on campus does something cool. Yeah. And something that they're really, really good at. So, you can learn from every person. It doesn't really matter what their background is at all, right? Because, students respond in different ways to different kinds of instructors, too. So, you can be a fabulous instructor and not meet the needs of a particular student, and it not for lack of trying, but just, you have to explore all kinds of parts of you, as an instructor, if you're really going to meet the needs of, multiple students. So I just feel like you never have it. Right, as a teacher, you can always learn from other people. So, and I, to be honest, when I started as board chair, I guess I was hoping for those kinds of things. I'm articulating them now, but at the time, I was just looking for something fun and new and challenging, and just a way to, want to do my job. Yeah. So looking back then to that 2-year time period, what was fun? What was new? What was challenging? What are some of the things that you achieved in those 2 years that you still look back on with some pride? Right. I remember the first meeting I attended as incoming board chair, and it was really nice because you're not responsible for everything that first year. You're always working with someone else. And it was Hillary before me. And I remember, stepping into that meeting and thinking, wow, these people are so enthusiastic. They're so talented, hardworking. Like, I could hardly take everything in that first meeting. I felt lucky to be a part of that group, and here I was stepping in, in a co-leadership position, and I felt a little bit like a fraud because I thought any one of these people around the table could be the leader. Could and should, right, be the leader. So I do remember that meeting and thinking too afterwards, it's Friday afternoon. Nobody was bored. Nobody was trying to check their cell phones. Everybody was so engaged in the conversations. And the other thing I remember is, man, we accomplished tons of stuff in an afternoon, on a Friday afternoon. And it was because people wanted to be there, and they were engaged, they were invested. And so after that first meeting, I just thought, I want to contribute to this. I don't want to ruin it, right? Because this feels so good that anything I do has to add to it, right? And so Hillary was a fantastic mentor. We're really different in terms of our leadership style, but I learned a great deal about leadership just watching him that first year. And then, like, what am I most proud of? Well, barely have to say it. I know the history now even a little bit better than I did at the time, but a former colleague of mine, Keith Roscoe, he was, I think, a teaching fellow that first year. And he said, Robin, have you heard of this program called the Instructional Skills Workshop? And I hadn't heard about it at all. And at the same time, he talked to Dave Hinger about it. And I didn't know that. And so, I'm thinking, this sounds great, and I'm doing all of my own research into it. Dave's doing the same thing. And then finally, we have a conversation, I think, in one of the meetings, and I realize, this is brilliant. This is everything that I experienced in the teaching and focus group and more, right? So thanks to the Teaching Center, they funded bringing 2 facilitators over, and you, me, Uta, Lisa, Phil, we all did, the first workshop, the Instructional Skills Workshop. Do you remember how you felt that first day?
I did not want to go back.
Yes.
I did not want to go back. I didn't want to be there. I did not want to go back. I thought, what am I doing here? This is just a whole bunch of ed theory and jargon.
Yeah, so I'm happy.
What am I getting at?
Well, kind
what
of.
What is the point of this?
Yes, yeah.
And now I look back on that workshop as being absolutely pivotal to my career.
Exactly. And it was such a risk all of us took. I look back on that and think, I didn't know you. I didn't know anybody.
I didn't know any of
you. I knew everybody by name. No, well, not even, right?
No.
And so, but I just knew I needed to do something. Something to make sure that we had a more cohesive, campus-wide approach to teaching. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't even know if the Instructional Skills Workshop was going to be the thing, right?
Because you look at it on paper and it's not evident that that might be sort of transformational for your colleagues, or that it might work for colleagues. Certainly developed for post-secondary instructors, absolutely. But on paper, you look at it and think,
well, because on paper it comes across, and I know it's not meant to be that way, but it comes across prescriptive. Right? And nobody wants to be told how to teach in a very prescriptive kind of way. Plus, it doesn't work. Right? That's not how good teaching works. It's about finding your own style. It's about doing what works for you, taking risks and challenges. So I agree, right? The book kind of looked like that. But like you, I thought, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. And when you all showed up, and, there were 5 of us in that room, and the 2 facilitators who were
amazing.
Lovely, right? I mean, so accepting and warm, and but tough. I mean, we were going to do, you know, the stuff that they'd set out for us, right? I thought, well, you're all here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I think
and then we came back, and then we kept coming back. And, you know, by the end of the week, like this lifelong bond had been formed.
It had. And, you know, it just amazes me. I know those things happen around teaching because I try to set up those kinds of experiences for my students, right? I mean,
because you work so much with student teachers.
Exactly.
Right? People who are about to go become K-12 teachers.
Right,
so
right.
this
And
is actually a
so-
long theme for you and your teaching.
I want them to bond. I want to develop community, and I work really hard at that. But it'd been a long time since I was part of a group like that.
Yeah.
You know, where it wasn't. I was just the facilitator all the time. So it was so. I just felt so accepted, and I had a new group of people who I, you know, cared about, and who taught me so much. I remember your yoga lesson, and I thought, yoga? Like, yeah, let's get up out of our seats, do something different, right? And everybody brought something to the table in those mini lessons that we're sort of challenged to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have to say, after the first day, 2 days, I completely relaxed into the process.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? I think I was a little bit uptight the first day.
We all were.
And I thought people would say, well, you know, like maybe I already knew it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, I did know it theoretically, and I did practice it. It's not the same as stepping in and taking those risks and putting yourself on the line. And that's what I think all of us did. And because we did that in front of each other, you know, we made ourselves a little vulnerable. And I don't know, professors don't like to do that very often. And it's not our fault. We're not supposed to look vulnerable. You know, certainly not in front of our students. That's not a good thing, right?
We're hired to be the experts, whatever that means, in our field.
Exactly.
And it's so strange because you're perfectly comfortable or not, perhaps performing in front of 90 or 120 or 250 students.
Exactly. You want to look like you've got it together.
But being in a small room with your colleagues on camera suddenly becomes this terrifying moment.
Yes. Yeah. And what I liked about the camera stuff was that only I looked at it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to share it with anybody.
Wasn't that a great part of it?
And you've been through it before, but I think for the rest of us, it was new, and that is still really one of the more terrifying aspects. I think for our new participants in the ISWs. What do you mean you're going to be videotaping me?
That's right.
You know, it's
but
like,
nobody looks at it but you, right? And you're always.
And it's so important.
Yeah, you're the best one to look at it anyway.
Yeah.
If somebody else tells me, you know, I saw that on the videotape, and you know, you really should change that. I don't think I am going to take that advice. I have to be the one who sees something on the videotape and says, I didn't like that, so that's something I'm going to work on.
Or perhaps even more importantly, whatever you think you're doing horribly actually isn't there at all.
Exactly.
Like how many participants have we seen who think that they have some wildly over-the-top verbal tic or physicality that you know, and what I'm finding now more often is people come back in the room and I say, tell me something good about what you just saw. Like, oh, I don't say as often as I think I do.
Right.
I don't do this or that. So it's also about seeing what's good in your teaching, literally from the perspective of your students.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So tell me about, so we're now 4 years later, how has the program developed since you and Dave took that big risk, spent that money, right, to get that initial team of facilitators in? Where are we at now, 4 years later?
Well, we are in an amazing position, I think.
If we do say so ourselves.
Exactly. Thank you. But could you have predicted this?
No, I didn't think we'd be here 4 years from now.
I didn't either. But what it's taken is a real commitment from, the first group of us, truly, because not only did it mean that we had to do that very first ISW, we had to take the next step too. And I don't know about you, but I remember having kind of an aha moment, probably in the middle of the night, like, this is not going to go away for you, Robin. Right? Like, I mean, and I mean that in a good way, because sometimes, like our lives are kind of, where we change things fairly regularly. Like you could be on study leave 1 year, or you could be teaching summer courses and then not available to do a workshop.
Developing a brand new first-year course 15 years into your career.
Something like that.
At all.
Right. I mean, our workload often changes
Yes.
on a fairly regular
Yes.
basis.
Yes.
So, but the success of this program relies on a certain kind of commitment and continuity.
Yes.
And I didn't have that aha moment until we were well into the process. And then it was like, okay, then that's what probably I'm going to devote my, a good portion of my time to from now until the end of my career. And I'm really happy to.
Yeah.
Because, it's funny, just before, you and I we've co-facilitated a number of sessions, and, we plan, right? And then the weekend before we start, do you sort of have this little moment like, here we go again.
Yep.
4 whole days or 5 whole days that you're sort of thinking, I could be finishing that chapter for Pearson.
Yep.
I could be, getting these instructional materials ready for my own class.
Yep.
And then we start.
And then you start,
And it is so much fun.
Yeah.
And so invigorating. I think, well, why would I even think that there'd be something more important than this week, right?
Yeah, you re-enter at the end of the 4 days, and it's like, oh, right, now I have to go back to all those other parts of my job that are so much less fun and magical and transformative.
So why is it so fun?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I ask myself this because, just before, I always feel that way just before we start. And then,
your participants are coming in thinking, why have I committed 4 days of my life to this?
That's true.
In August, when I could be prepping the new course, when I could be finishing that chapter, you see that question on your participants' face when they come in, sort of on that first Monday morning.
Yeah.
And then somehow 28 hours later, they leave and they're a team.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
they have renewed confidence in themselves and they're taking risks. And
Exactly.
you know that those 4 are about to go raise the bar for whatever students they teach that year, right?
Yeah,
because they're leaving with concrete plans, a renewed confidence and joy in teaching, but actual concrete, that's a great idea. I'm totally doing that in my class this fall. It's why we time them, for the mid-August,
That's right?
There's enough time to, I made the mistake after ours of deciding I was going to reinvent 3 courses that year.
Yes, I hear you.
That wasn't smart.
But it is inspiring.
And that's just it, inspiring.
Yes.
And again, for most of us, we don't have any kind of educational training.
Yes.
And we're certainly not accustomed to talking to colleagues outside our own discipline about our teaching, having that vulnerability, having that kind of moment with each other.
That's a strength,
inspiration.
right? That's a strength of it is working with people outside of your discipline.
Absolutely.
Because, when you only hear about your own discipline and the pedagogy that's associated with education or history or whatever it might be, it's hard to think differently about my teaching, right? But as soon as I hear someone else talk about, well, in the lab we do this, it's like, in the lab, now I don't have a lab, but right, exactly.
I could totally steal that idea and modify it for my class.
That's right. Yes.
So it breaks down so many barriers, and I think for me there's also a politically potentially radical transformative angle to this, which is it's not just about building teaching community, a community of passionate teachers. It's about building a community of colleagues who no longer see ourselves as divided by all of those silos that structure a university.
Oh, that's
right?
a good point.
It doesn't make sense to me anymore to regard someone in ed or fine arts or a physicist as occupying some sort of fundamentally different world than I do.
Exactly.
We in fact occupy this glorious shared world of the classroom.
Right.
And the other stuff actually begins to feel a bit more peripheral.
That's right.
In a way.
Yes, and what really matters. So that's absolutely right. The collaboration would be huge, I think, in terms of what we've accomplished by bringing the ISW to campus. That collaboration and the common language, right?
Yeah.
We talk about mini lessons. We now know what we mean by a mini lesson, right? Or we talk about facilitation. We talk about student learning, right? There are all kinds of terms now that I think are common, and we can see that they're common across disciplines. That there's much more that unites us than divides us, right? So those are the collaboration and the common language. Those are 2, I think, really important things. And now, how many people have had the ISW training.
We're over 30 faculty now.
Over 30.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
10 or 11 faculty members who
Yep.
can facilitate the ISW,
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
And now
Up to
we
a dozen, I
have
think.
we have
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
I think now, you and
Yeah.
I, we can train trainers,
Yeah.
and we now have a new group of trainers as
Yeah.
well.
And I think that's been another really valuable
Yeah.
piece of the collaboration and the risk taking. Like you and Dave had to see the value of this
Yeah.
back in 2011 and say, okay, fine, let's pay the money to bring those trainers in.
Yeah.
And then we begin pushing Dave immediately after that workshop. Okay, we
Yes.
want to learn how to become facilitators.
Yes.
And again, it involved him taking the risk and taking some of the money out of the budget to say, okay, fine, we're going to bring some
Yeah.
trainers back in because these people want to become facilitators
Exactly.
of this workshop.
That's right.
Let's see how that goes.
Yes, yeah, and that was kind of something that I remember, having in my mind at the very beginning, that it has to be self-sustaining
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the University of Lethbridge.
Yeah, because it costs too much to bring in external
Yes,
facilitators.
yes.
It's not cheap.
Yes, and really, we have the expertise here.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
reason to go
Yeah.
beyond. Once we had the sessions that trained people, and even that word
I know,
is
I don't like it,
bothersome.
yeah.
I don't really like
Yeah.
it, but
It's like you're facilitating the facilitators. That just takes longer to say.
It does. So maybe we
right?
should
Which is
not
why
do
we stick
that.
with train the trainers. It's fewer syllables. But
Yeah, but the word training can leave a bad taste in
Yeah.
people's mouths too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's that prescription that I
Yeah.
talked about it, early on. That it doesn't define what good teaching is. So I do think anybody who's thinking about taking the ISW, if any of the language that they've heard or maybe read about, if that is making them a little uncomfortable, I just really want to encourage them
Yeah.
to move beyond that, because the actual experience
Yeah.
is. I know
Yeah.
we say transformative, and it's like, really?
Yeah. That's awfully strong language for an
Exactly.
academic to use. What do you mean by transformative?
I know, and yet we believe that our teaching and our disciplines have a transformative effect with our students. Well, why wouldn't we embrace that ourselves, right?
For each other.
For each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really was transformative for me.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2010, I had been here 18 years.
Right.
It's a long time, and I had my ducks in a row, like things were, going pretty well. That phrase, if it ain't broke,
Yeah.
don't fix it. But that really, it did so much more for me than I ever dreamed, Right.
And I think that's been another really interesting feature of it is that it's voluntary. Faculty
Yes.
choose to come
Yes.
and spend 4 days having some fun with their colleagues
Right.
and maybe learning some new tricks. And it's been interesting to watch the range of faculty who do choose to come, because we've had everything from quite senior, very experienced,
Yeah.
already very good teachers,
Yes.
right? Distinguished Teaching Award winners.
Yep.
Why would you, or some of the recent participants, why would you choose to come take the ISW?
Right. Yeah.
Right? What do you think attracts an already very senior,
experienced.
very good teacher to come take this workshop?
Yeah. Because if you love teaching, right, and you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. You have a mindset that you've never arrived. That
Yeah.
you can always do it better.
Yep.
You do. It's just part of who you are. And there's not one of us, I'm sure, who walks out of the classroom at the end of the class and just kind of starts thinking, well, next time I wouldn't have
next
groups of
time.
5. I'm going to have groups of 4, and
Yeah.
and because we continually do that,
Yeah.
that's why we want to be involved in something like the Instructional Skills Workshop, because it just exposes you to more ideas, more people, and enriches, right, your own teaching. The other thing is, I think too, is sometimes we are so alienated as teachers. It's you in the classroom with the students.
Yeah.
Dorn-
It's bizarrely lonely, you and a couple hundred other people.
Isn't that
sometimes.
strange? Because you're the one responsible for their learning,
Yeah.
right? And so to know that you can connect with other people and that they can contribute, right, to your learning, so that you can go out the door at the end of the day and go, oh my God, that just bombed. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And somebody will say, it's okay.
Yeah.
I tried that too, and I didn't get very far, but here's how I address that.
And somebody from a completely different discipline. Right, and
Even
that was
better.
That was for me one of the big eye openers. I think, like most of us, I was very locked into my discipline and my own discipline-specific pedagogy.
Yes.
And I don't think I deeply believed that someone from a very different disciplinary background could actually help me with my teaching.
Yes.
And I've now changed my mind on that completely. Where I think, in fact, I know that I place considerably more value. It's like the further away somebody is from me in a disciplinary sense, actually the more they're going to have to offer me about my teaching. Because we're going to have some kind of weird commonality, but they're going to bring that different perspective. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way. What a great idea.
Exactly. That's right. And I couldn't agree more. Like, I often think that, I wouldn't have much to learn from a very senior student in the sciences, right? Or someone who's brand new, right? You'd think that the mentorship would go the other way around, but it's not true, right? That person, is wildly talented in some way that I can benefit from. And in turn, and this is really what I love about the ISW, is it's all about improving the students' learning experience. I've talked a lot about, and we've shared how it's transformed us and the people we work for, but and we haven't got a really good way yet of documenting how these experiences truly affect our students and their learning. And that's what I think we want to think about over the next few years, is how can we find out from, what I'd call our best curriculum informants, how can we find out from them, what these experiences mean? Because to me, that's the ultimate reason.
Yeah, in practical terms, okay, fine, you've had 4 lovely, glorious days, you feel transformed, you feel inspired.
Exactly.
Yeah, but, right, when you go back to your own classroom,
that's right.
What are you putting into effect in practical terms?
Yeah, that's right.
And we've been doing this anecdotally since we started in 2011, but we've never really been, we're going to be working on that this year to start getting more consistent information about, in practical terms.
Oh, that's great.
How did the ISW affect your teaching, taking risks, whatever. Really in 2 streams. Like, for me, having a happier teacher is already, a very powerful change.
Part,
And also, in addition, what are you doing with your assessments? Or what are you doing in terms of active learning? Or what are you doing in terms of, so it's time to start being consistent about that collection. And we're going to work on that this year.
Okay. Well, I know you're doing something right now already where you're having someone come in and collect some midterm feedback from your students, right? So, that's
additional
fantastic.
layers of feedback.
Yes.
And, 4 years ago, the very words objectives and outcomes felt jargony to me.
I know.
And now, they absolutely are so central to, my teaching, my outlines, my assessment. How did I get away with this before?
Isn't that
And that's the horrifying thought. Like, I just got away with the standard fuzzy, you might know some stuff by the end, but I won't really have any good way to assess that.
Well, but I understand that because, before I came here, I was a public school teacher. And the thing that was very frustrating about being a public school teacher is that your curriculum is mandated. And even when you see in your students that they might need something, it's out of your realm to make that decision and provide it. So, what I love about being here is, you are the curriculum developer, right? And that means that you can be really attuned to what your students want and need. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be accountable, right? So I think that's something that we've really taken on in the ISW, is that accountability as an instructor. Right? Accountable to our students, accountable to their learning in some way. But for me, it's been fabulous. But it's really about the students and trying to make their experience. Like, I remember being an undergrad, like. And I remember the fears and the questions. I also remember the professors, and many of them taught here. I did my undergrad here, so. Phil Butterfield was just, instrumental in making me believe in my ideas. Like, Can there be anything greater
Yeah.
than that in a lib ed program?
Yeah.
Believe in your ideas.
Yeah. Believe that you have a voice.
Oh,
Believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So anything that the ISW does, is going to affect students. And I agree with you, like some way of documenting that, even collecting anecdotes from instructors is a good start, right?
Yeah.
But then what we do beyond that, I think it will take a little more time and planning. Yeah.
So we've already talked about what some of the most senior people who've chosen to come take the ISW can take out of it.
Yeah.
I think certainly the bulk of our participants so far have been, you could say, mid-career.
That's true.
Right? They're comfortably established or they're tenured,
Yes.
so it's now okay
You're right.
to take at least some of the energy away from the research and put it towards their
Yes.
teaching. But we've also had a small number of quite brave but very early career people take
Yes.
it.
Yes.
What do you think they have gotten out of it?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you're new here, chances are you've moved from somewhere else. You've left a community and maybe family. So the nice thing about being involved in the ISW fairly quickly is that you're exposed to a new community right away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And these people really, I mean, like the first time that we went through the program, we started saying, well, we're going to meet for lunch every month.
Yeah.
Right?
And we have.
And we have. And we know that there are other ISW groups that have done exactly the same thing. So it right
Last
away.
year we had a reunion.
And a reunion
right?
for
Our first
everybody.
ever. Yeah.
We're going to have another one this fall, I
We
hope,
are,
right?
yeah.
So the idea of just having that community
Yes.
and not struggling so much. A lot of new people will say to me retrospectively, boy, those first few years were tough.
They are.
Right?
Yeah, it's just about not drowning. I mean, that's the best advice you can
Yes.
give a new hire.
Yes.
Just don't drown the first couple of years.
I
think we could be
know.
doing better than that.
I think we could,
You know?
absolutely. And we need
Like
to
when
be.
that's meant to be the comforting phrase, there's
Yes.
something wrong
Right.
with what we're doing to support our newest
Exactly.
hires.
That's right. Yes, no kidding. And that shouldn't be the bar, right? I mean, let's face it, that's not a good bar to set. But they need that community. They need to know they're not alone. And I
They
mean,
need to know we've all been through it.
exactly. And you and
Right.
I know we often work with Alpha, in the STP meetings, and we try to tell new faculty and so on a little bit about how to present your teaching. And we say, get in touch with the teaching center, get your name on a list so you can, take the ISW, when it's offered, because we just know that that's going to connect them with other people and help them feel like they've got a place on campus, that they're not struggling alone. And not that struggling might not always be the right word, but they have someone there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one big thing for new faculty, is that sense of community. And they get a sense of, as you say, well, how would I plan a lecture? Like, would I start with an outcome, what I want my students to learn, right? And should I find out what my students already know, right? That pre-test idea, right? And then how could I get them actively involved? Like, just because I sat in a lecture and I knew it wasn't the best kind of pedagogy for me, am I going to teach that way? Well, I will if I don't know any other ways. Right?
Most of us do that at first because, that's just how the post-secondary system works.
That's right.
It's that disciplinary focus.
Yeah.
You start off teaching your new undergrads the way you were
right.
taught as an undergrad or what was modeled for you during
That's
grad
right.
school. And it's generally quite abhorrent pedagogy.
Exactly. Exactly, right?
But we're doing it the same way universities have done it since the Middle Ages. That's not really a good way.
Exactly. And our students are so different now than they were even 10 years ago. And a lot of it has to do with technology, the way they communicate. And if we're not thinking about that and working together to try to meet these new needs, then, we're irrelevant to their lives. That we don't want that. So.
And not just new needs. I mean, I think one could also make the case that, students have also been students. I mean,
we've said
faculty have
that.
been complaining for a long time. Oh, students these days.
That's right. Exactly.
They're also still students, right? So the tech might be a new factor, but I think at its core, good teaching is still going to be good teaching.
I agree.
I think something else that I find really powerful for the newer brave faculty who choose to take it early on. It's that sense of community.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. You're not alone. We've all survived it. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. I like the idea of being able to model early on that it's okay to actually value your teaching, because the message really they're getting is that focus on the research, focus on the research, focus on the research until you get tenure.
Right.
And that's why people come to us once they're tenured, right? Because then it's okay to admit.
To take these other
and I like
risks.
the idea of being able to model that teaching and research, research and teaching can actually also be a fulfilling and achievable balance.
Exactly, that's right. Well, see, and I found that out in talking with you and the other group of ISW participants, because in education,
there isn't the big divide between teaching and research, and for the rest of us there is.
I know, that's right. And that was a real learning, moment for me, that, because I take it for granted that people are going to be interested in teaching. Like, I really do. I couldn't even imagine, and that's just my discipline, right? We value it so much, right? Because if our students walk out of the classroom and think, well, everything I'm learning about teaching, this person isn't doing, oh my God, that's the kiss of death, right? I mean, they have to walk out and think, I want to do just like that. So it's foreign to me, or when I first started, that there could be this divide, right? And so I know that...
And that you're expected to, frankly, make a bit of a choice.
I know.
In terms of where your time and resources go until you're tenured. And the choice is, teaching has got to come second. It's got to come second in the early years of your career.
That was a bit of a shock.
Heartbreaking.
That was a shock to me.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
I just
really?
thought, what?
I don't think I've ever heard you say that before about the first ISW.
Because I just
because
couldn't
we were
believe
in there with
that.
a colleague who was still at that very early stages of her career.
Yeah, well, and that raises...
She's still one of the few pre-tenure people who've chosen to take the workshop.
That's right. And what happened, which kind of naturally in that group, which I thought was very cool, is, I sort of, I don't know if she'll cringe at this, but I sort of felt like I wanted to be her mentor.
Yeah.
I really did, because I saw in her me 20 years ago.
Yes.
Trying to have a family.
That's true.
Right? Trying to have a strong research agenda, but wanting to be a good teacher and believing in good teaching. And so when she was part of that group, I really wanted to mentor her. And what was so neat is, as she became more and more involved in the teaching center, I remember sitting her down and saying, hey, you better, because of what you told me, you better just check with your chair and make sure this isn't going to work against you.
Yeah. And how horrible is it that that's a fact of life at the university?
Yeah, I know.
Make sure that caring too much about being a good and effective teacher might work against you at tenure.
Yes, exactly.
Again, it's a bit of an appalling statement to be able to make about the world that we work in.
It is, but realistic, right? And I mean, as much as I love everything that we do, you really want people to be successful in their careers. And so I'm hoping that the ISW and your work as you continue it will make sure that it is not looked upon as a second type of
I think we're getting there.
Strength in teaching, right? I mean, I think all of our first year students should be taught by all of the people who've won teaching awards or who say, I want to teach first years, or, so that their first year experience is so brilliant. No matter what happens after that, they'll be like, well, that's okay. I had that first year. Behind me.
I agree completely. I think it's really distressing. The trend towards, whether it's more pressure on graduate education or bigger universities, they dump grad students or they dump poorly paid sessionals or whatever, because first years don't matter.
Exactly.
Or there's so many of them that we haven't weaned them out yet. And I agree with you completely. It's a piece of the retention conversation I think doesn't happen often enough.
I agree.
Yes, but what is going on in the first year classrooms? And what are we doing to make sure that the absolute best that we've got in terms of teachers, that's who's doing first year?
I couldn't agree more.
That's our retention strategy, right? Don't make them be alone in a big class with a prof who would rather
be doing something
be
else.
doing the research.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, have them in there.
I know.
What if they only saw 5 teachers who passionately cared about their classrooms, passionately cared about their students?
Yeah.
That's a retention strategy.
I agree.
You know, everything else for me feels a bit like, you know, you're fiddling around the periphery.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I mean, and the key is that they want to teach first years. Like, and, you know, I've worked with...
Because some of us really love it.
Exactly,
right? And
I
wouldn't
know.
you rather have that in a first year class than a teacher who isn't very good, or maybe they're never going to be very good, but they're sitting on a big research grant, so it's okay for them to be crappy in a classroom, and they don't want to be there.
No, that's the ticket, is that you want to be there, and you know, and you see it as a challenge to get these students so excited, in, you know, with your discipline, and you know, so that, and our students are our, you know, very, you know, best form of public relations. Yeah. Because every single student goes and talks to somebody.
Their siblings, extended family members, their friends.
Exactly.
You know, at a small school that wants to take pride in that live ed reputation.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, teaching needs to be even more central to that than I think we've made it.
I agree. I agree.
And because then that's a great narrative to be sending out to the community. You know, I had this conversation when I was talking to Andy Haken, our VP academic, who's been so supportive of teaching.
Yes.
And he and I were talking about it. It's harder to sell sometimes as a public PR narrative research, because that can sometimes seem maybe a little bit disconnected to the broader public. It's actually much easier to tell great stories about teaching and sell great stories about teaching, because maybe that's a little bit easier for a broader public to understand.
That's a very good point. Yes.
What if we were able to switch the narrative? I mean, of course we need to be proud of the research accomplishments and the folks who, you know, do that kind of work. But what if we were also talking about, you know, or every first year student went home and said, I had a great class today.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Well,
I know that. I mean, that's just enormous, right? Or
then they want to come back in January.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And they keep, you know, they keep talking about that. You know, you should take a course from so and so. That was the best experience of my life, right? Yeah. Yeah. Or and you know, students are extremely generous in terms of what they accept. And so, you know, I've heard students say, you know, it's all lecture, but he's a really good lecturer, right? Or, you know, this is what you'll get from this particular person. So, you know, they're resilient. They come in and they're sort of, okay, what kind of teacher is this? You know, what am I going to have to do? And they make all kinds of adjustments, right? But as soon as they feel, you know, accepted and cared for, and they can tell that this, you know, the instructor is putting lots of time and effort into what they're doing. And I think that's a mistake that some instructors make, is that they don't make their teaching as visible to students as they could. So, you know, they might have stayed up, you know, 3 nights in a row, you know, preparing materials and putting things together, and then they present it and, you know, and it doesn't go well. But they never say, you know, I put a lot of time and effort into this. It didn't quite, but could I get some feedback from you before you leave the room? You know, write on what I call an exit slip. Right? Just let me know what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and anything that I might do differently next time. You know, and if you make some of your work visible to them, they'll be like, oh, and they'll write that in their course evaluation, you know, is trying to change, you know, his teaching style and talk to us about it. Like, it's okay to say those things to your students. Right? That's presenting vulnerability, but in a what I'd say a smart way. Right?
I think it's something you and I have in common. It's something I've learned, you know, from folks like you, from my mentor, Pat Chutrick, of, you know, why not be transparent? Why not tell them what you're trying to do?
Exactly.
So I've made that a really key feature. Because my assignments don't look like a lot of the assignments that they're getting in other classes, I need to, I have an extra burden perhaps to tell them, this is why I'm doing it. Research has shown that this or that kind of teaching or learning activity will actually help you in this way. Or what I care about are these skills, and this is how this assignment is supposed to get there, but you let me know if it works or not.
Exactly.
And I have worked really hard to be as transparent as possible with that in every way, in like every facet of the assessment, the assignment, like there's no surprises.
That's right.
You know, but be also very open and honest about, okay, this is new. Right? I'm going into a brand new first-year class this fall.
You can say that.
You know,
yes.
and they're going to hear about that on day one. Like,
That's
okay,
good.
welcome to the first ever
I know.
class like this on campus.
They appreciate that.
This is a joint effort. So
Yeah.
you're going to tell me what works and what doesn't work this term.
Yeah.
They do appreciate
I
it.
think so.
You know,
Yeah.
and they are so generous and so kind.
They are.
You know.
And, you know, another form of
More than we deserve, I think.
well, you know,
I want to go back and apologize to so many of the students I taught in my early career. Like,
oh my God, we all made mistakes, right? Sometimes, you know, I mean, some of us have even come clean and told those mistakes on camera, but we won't go there.
Maybe we'll finish with that in a minute.
No, I don't think we should. But another form of transparency that really challenges me is providing exemplars for my students.
Yes.
So whenever I ask for, you know, a new assignment, I'm doing a brand new assignment this year. It's called a literacy history, and I want my students to be able to use something like Tumblr or Weebly or some kind of technology, but then they're going to trace their literacy history as a way of helping them understand what they value and believe about literacy today, right? So it's all
cool assignment.
Oh, it's all brand new,
right?
And I'm, you know, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
But right now I'm putting together my literacy history, and the good thing about doing that is oh my God, I come up against something. I'm like, this is hard. Right? That I don't know how to do this. And then, you know, I go and get some support from, you know, somebody who has that technology background. They walk me through it. But by the time I complete the exemplar, I've been through the process that I expect them to do.
It's another advantage of the ISW that I tell people about that you're also back in being learner mode for a while, right? Because most of us haven't been students in years, decades, whatever.
Exactly.
Right? And there's something really valuable about being back in that position of being the student. And even in a very short mini lesson, feeling like, I don't understand these instructions. I don't understand the point of this. Like, I think that's really valuable for teachers to be reminded that if, you know, you're in an ISW, which is all, you know, you're terribly smart colleagues from lovely disciplines.
I know.
And if you've just managed to convince or confuse them.
Exactly.
Let's stop and think about how good a job you're doing explaining it to your students.
Exactly.
You know, and you see yourself. I have, you know, as you know, I turn into the difficult student, as it turns out.
That never happens.
And it's made me be much more sympathetic in recent years too. Like when that student starts kicking up in class.
And it's challenged me. Thank you very much as a facilitator.
You know, you're welcome.
No problem.
It's like, you know what? I can't complain too much about that student in class because that is who I am.
Exactly.
Right? When I go back to being a student, I am you.
And isn't it great? Isn't it a great learning experience?
It is.
Right?
And I was reminded of that. You know, you're working yourself, you're putting yourself through the same thing you're about to put your students through.
Exactly.
Right? You've put yourself through it as the learner because I think we forget. We have these ideas in our head and think, oh, that sounds like a great assignment.
Exactly.
And then it tanks completely. Exactly. Like, I don't know what went wrong there.
I know, exactly.
You know, like, well.
I know. Let me tell you.
Let me tell you what went wrong.
You would ask.
Yeah.
And that's the error that I think
or you run it by your, you know, your ISW backup, you know, crew first, and then like, oh, I tried something very similar 2 years ago. Don't go there.
You know, and often what is at the base of it, not always, but it's always that the intent, our purpose isn't clear.
Yeah.
Like it's a great idea, and you know, if you can get students to, you know, get excited about it, it's fine. But it's often because the intent is here in my head, but I haven't figured out a way to say this is the purpose of this particular. Because
is the outcome?
As soon as as soon as they know that, it, you know, then they can be as creative as they want. I think you know, and you don't get cookie cutter assignments when they understand the purpose. It's like, okay, as long as you're open to, you know, lots of different ways of them, you know, showing their learning, right? But oh no, I think the student perspective is what the ISW has a lot to offer.
Because again, the university model is focused on the teacher, right? You're in there as the expert, as I said before.
You're
you know,
right.
and it's teacher focused, and it's both a very small and very big transformation. Suddenly, what if you thought about your teaching from the perspective of the learner? Like, well, aren't I doing that already? No, you're not.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
What if you tried this?
That's right.
And it changes, you know, so many things.
And even if you can't remember, you know, back to being that particular particular student.
Yeah.
I mean, you have 100 people you could ask, right? They're in your class right now.
Yeah, like say quick feedback.
Quick
It's
feedback.
funny how many of us do that. We have there's many different versions of this
That's
kind of
right.
at work in many of our different classrooms
Yes.
of not waiting for those student evaluations, which aren't super helpful and
No.
they don't help you adjust on the fly.
That's right.
If something's going poorly right up front.
Exactly.
you know.
Yes. Yeah. That feedback that feedback has to be built in to your teaching.
Yeah.
So it's actually another teaching technique.
And then they can see you adjust and they know they've been heard.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So since you did bring it up, I mean, I do think it's fair to talk about what's gone wrong in our classrooms because I think it's very valuable. If we hear from the best teachers on campus, the award winners on campus, the former board chairs on
Which
campus.
one will I tell?
Still making mistakes,
Yes.
taking risks, having things go badly.
Okay.
So,
All right.
you know.
Okay. All right. Well, can I tell
It could
two?
be the most absolutely.
Okay, I'll tell one that's quite recent and one that's about 5 years old. So, the most recent one is I teach a class, English Language Arts for English majors in the Faculty of Education with Leah Fowler. So I'm bringing her into this too. I'm not wearing this all by myself.
Throwing a colleague under the bus.
Exactly.
Nice.
The two of us, co-planning the course for last spring. We're both. And I feel so embarrassing, but we both won awards for teaching. We sit down to plan.
Amazing teacher.
We sit down to plan the whole semester, and we've got all kinds of things where our students are going to be really actively involved. Right? There's lots of formative assessment. We're ticking the boxes like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
But one of the things we want to do is make sure we hear from our students on a regular basis. So some sort of journal once a week, a reflection, and that's not uncommon in the Faculty of Education at all. So we figured our students would be familiar with the idea. So we are brainstorming for what we call this. We don't want to call it a journal. That's so boring, right? So we call it epistemological musings. We think it's brilliant, right? Oh my God, and neither one of us saw
the problem?
anything wrong with that. No. We wrote it on the course outline.
Epistemological musings.
And then, ... my anything book. Meaning that you could write anything. Right? That's the whole idea.
Right.
Oh my God. I just don't even know what to say. In a week, we knew this was horrible because they thought they could write anything, and so
because you had told them that they could,
and they got a little upset when we said, "This isn't quite what we're looking for.
Right.
We'd like you to refer to the readings that you're doing, and
what you said.
some of the quotes, not what you said." So, and it was really hard. It's 8 weeks. We only have them on campus 8 weeks. Not like it's a whole semester.
That's right.
So to put the brakes on and do something quite different in the middle of the semester for us it's felt impossible. So the way we decided to, 38 students, so the way we thought we'd do it is just when somebody didn't do it right, we just talk. We just have an individual conference.
Right.
Well, that got to be so time consuming because, I would say out of the 38, 5 got it. So anyway. And, this is why I love my students. In the course evaluations, they write things like, love Robin and Leah, such a great course, but that anything book, question mark, question mark, question mark, like they just knew. And we came clean, and just said, we're really sorry. I don't know what happened. But we did apologize for the whole rigmarole. It's not, we have something quite different this coming semester. So anyway, based on student feedback. Okay, one more story. Okay. All right, this shows, I think, dedication to teaching really beyond what should be expected at a university. Well, I'm teaching an evening class, 4 to 7, and I have about 21 students. We're up in the curriculum lab because that's often where I teach because all the resources are there. And if you're familiar with the curriculum lab, it has a beautiful area with beanbag chairs and you can look out in the
corner.
windows.
You've got windows on two sides.
Right. So and I use that lab a lot. So I arrived in class and I was sicker than I've ever been, right, at 4 o'clock. And, just a loath to cancel a class.
Right.
I don't know why, but I am. So I get there and I've got a pounding headache. I'm sick to my stomach. And they know. They can see I'm, green. And so a lovely student says, oh, when I have really bad migraines, I take this. And she gave me a pill, and I'm like, okay, thank you. And then I know the student, she's lovely, and I trusted her, of course, right? And this is me, and I don't want to hurt her feelings. So I'm like, thank you. And I take it right then. I just take it, because it's going to help my headache, right? But I know I'm not well enough to stand up and lecture or anything, so I just sort of say, for this activity, maybe go out in the Cur Lab, find the materials you need, and work on it independent. We'll meet back here in about 45 minutes, right? So I think that buys me a little time. So I go out into the Cur Lab to the nice, quiet area. I sit in a chair and I put my feet up and I put my head back, and I'm out, out, but I'm dreaming, and while I'm dreaming or having this hallucination, I hear voices, and I hear Bill Cade going, this is
former president of the university,
saying,
Bill Cade.
And this is where our education faculty works a lot of the time, and here's our thing. Oh, here's one of our professors, Robin Bright, and as soon as I hear my name, my eyes pop open, and there's Bill Cade with the Board of Governors. He's giving them a tour, and I'm just horrified because I'm sleeping in the Cur Lab, and he goes, oh, are you okay, Robin? And I'm like, yes, I'm not feeling very good, right? And he can see, obviously. And then he goes, well, you should go home. And I'm like, I can't. I'm teaching. And I point to my students, and I don't know what he thinks. And so he quickly ushers everybody out of the Cur Lab, and I call my students, and I go home at that point.
So at that point
I go home, and I realize I should have gone home an hour and a half anyway. So you see, it can happen to anybody. Anyway, that's what
so there's really two lessons here. Just cancel the class when you're sick.
No.
Just cancel the class when you're sick, right? Would you want your students to come to class when they're that sick? No, just cancel the class.
And go ahead with the second part.
Maybe don't take drugs from students.
That would be the other lesson.
That would be the second lesson
and I never have done that since. I just want you to know. So, anyway.
Advice for new professors.
Yes, I know, because it could happen to you, right? I'm sure other people would have made different decisions all along the way than I did. But anyway, and it's we have to be willing to sort of share this stuff, right?
Yeah.
When I taught grade 1, and I did teach grade 1 for 5 years, I thought if there was one other adult in this classroom, we would laugh all day long. We would get nothing done, right? And I just want to bring that same feeling to the university classroom.
Yeah.
That, it should be fun, it should be enjoyable, it should be hard work and challenging, but boy, it has to be fun.
Yeah, and if you're not having fun, we can help.
Yes.
Right, we can help. Your
Yes.
colleagues can help, the teaching center can help.
That's right.
We can help. If you're not having fun,
That's
call
right.
us.
Other
because
people,
it can and should be fun.
Exactly.
It's not just crazy
Yes,
people who
that's
think
right.
that this is actually a fun part of the job. So thank you so much for coming and talking
Thanks,
with me
Sheila.
today, Robin. This has been a great conversation.
Yes, you got way too much out of me, but that's okay.